Hello students, I am Dr. Shrikant Bause, Assistant Professor at Department of Advanced Management Studies, GS College of Commerce, Wardha. In the last video, we have seen the important terminologies with respect to the valuation of bond. Today, we are going to study the key characteristics of bond. Now, the key characteristics of bond includes three provisions, that is call provisions, put provisions and the sinking fund provisions. Now what is meant by the call provision? This call provision is the provision by which the issuer of a bond can buy back, can repurchase its issued bond from the market. Suppose you have bought the bonds of XYZ Limited and repurchase of bond by the issuer will give an option to the XYZ Limited to buy back their bonds from you. So this is the buyback of bonds by the issuer at a pre-specified price. The price at which the buyback of bond will happen will be depending on the issuer, and that price will be decided by the issuer with respect to the current market price. This buyback will be naturally done before the maturity. For example, if the bond is having a maturity of say 10 years and just after 7 years the issuer of bond thinks that he want to repurchase his bond from the market, buy back his bonds from the market, he will do it before the maturity, that is in the 7th or 8th year. He will not wait for the maturity. So this is an embedded option, that is buyback of bond is the embedded option which is given by the issuer. Okay, and this kind of bonds are called as the callable bond. Now why such kind of need arises? If the issuer thinks that he do not need more money, or if the interest rates are going high and if issuer have to pay more interest rate, at that time the issuer may buy back the bonds from the market. So this is the first kind of provision in which the issuer repurchase the issued bonds from the bondholders at a pre-specified price before maturity, and this is called as the callable option. Now the next type of provision, which is exactly opposite of call provision, is called as the put provision. Now put provision is given to the buyer of a bond. For example, the buyer of a bond is having the option to sell his bond before the maturity to the issuer. This is called as the put option. It enables the buyers to sell his existing bonds before the maturity. Now, what will happen in the put provision? In the call provision, the prices will be decided by the issuer, whereas in the put provisions the prices will be with respect to the current market price and yield of a bond. So this is called as the puttable bond. Here the decision of deciding price rests with the issuer, whereas here the bond will be sold by the bondholder. So it will be sold at the current market price. Now the third type of option which is given to the bondholders by the issuer is sinking fund provision. In this provision, the fixed amount of bonds, fixed percentage of bonds will be repurchased by the issuer every year before the maturity. Suppose the bond issuer is issuing 1 crore bonds, and if he says that he will repurchase 10% of bonds every year, means he will purchase the 10 lakh bonds every year from the bondholders, from the open market, from the outstanding positions. This will reduce his risk. This will minimize the risk associated with the default, but that will be regardless of the interest rates, no matter whether the interest rates go up or whether the interest rate goes down. The issuer of a bond who is issuing the bond with sinking fund provisions will have to repurchase the fixed amount of bond, fixed percentage of bond from the market every year. So this naturally reduces the risk of default. It also reduces the credit risk. So we have seen the three types, that three important characteristics of a bond. Now, who issues these bonds? The first entity which issues the bonds is central bank, the reserve bank, the bank of any nation is called as the treasury or the central bank. For example, in India, Reserve Bank of India is the central bank, which is also called as the treasury bank. In US Federal Reserve is termed as the treasury bank. In England, Bank of England is termed as the treasury or the central bank. These banks can issue the government bonds. Then next category of participant and issuer in these government bonds is government companies. For example, in India, Indian Railways, various power distribution companies which are popularly known as DISCOM, nationalized banks like State Bank of India, Bank of Baroda, Punjab National Bank, Bank of India, these banks can issue the bonds. These are all the government banks and the government companies. Then next, municipalities like Mahanagarpalika. Just for instance, take an example of BMC, that is Bruhan Mumbai Corporation, Mumbai. It is a very big entity and it can issue the bonds. These bonds may be issued for the purpose of development of metro region. The National Highway Authority of India, it is also a government company. It can issue the long-term bonds for the construction of roads and highways. Then water supply department under the municipality corporation. Then the state governments. These all the entities can issue the government bonds. In addition to this, there are n number of foreign entities who also can issue the government bonds. For example, foreign financial institutions can issue the government bonds. So largely the issuers of bonds are categorized into the four types, that is the treasury or central bank, which example we have taken, that is of RBI. Then government companies such as Indian Railways, power distributors, NTPC, DISCOM, Power Finance Corporation, Rural Electrification Corporation, municipalities like Mahanagarpalika, then water supply department, then the foreign entities such as the financial institutions. Okay, so today we have seen in this video the most important characteristics of bond and the issuers of bonds. Thank you.